Okay, everyone, it looks like everyone that's going to come to our webinar today is here. So, welcome. Today we are here to talk about making custom patches, specifically covering caps, which is actually quite easy. I'm just going to bring up our little graphic here. Specifically, we're going to talk about caps. I've got a black unstructured tile type of cap that we're going to do today in this webinar, but this really works for any style of cap, depending on what you're doing. Some of them you're going to need to get creative with, and others you can do quite easily. So we're going to use a standard cap press today, and I'll show you that once we switch over to video. Right now you should just see my screen. And we're going to talk about standard caps today, and then we'll just talk about the theory of the rest of them. So how would I do it if I was going to put it on a beanie cap or a specialty cap that was an odd shape, like like a cowboy hat or a beret or something like that? How would I handle that differently? And we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. It's really about just getting into a mindset, and once you start to think about it that way and the theory behind it, then you'll find a way to apply it to any garment, really. A hat is just a garment in a specific shape, so the instructions aren't really much different than putting it onto a t-shirt or a sweater. It's just how we do it is a little bit differently. So today we'll display a cap press. So if you don't know who we are, you probably do by now, but just in case you come here, this is your first time speaking with us. We're Colman and Company. We help custom apparel businesses get started, keep going, get up and running, supply themselves, for years on end, or be their first entry into the business. The patch kit is one of our, if not actually it's the product that our customers talk about the most. So when we talk about all of the products that we have, this is the one that Colman and Company and the kit that we've put together and the instructional package and everything that goes with it, this is what our customers really like. We get a lot of awesome feedback on this product that people are able to start doing patches that they've never been able to do before, or they thought they were going to need to buy other equipment, or they had to outsource the work for. And the thought process behind this is, one, all you need is an embroidery machine and nothing else. You get one of our kits, you have an embroidery machine, you can make patches. You really don't even need an embroidery machine if you were going to put other things on the patches, like a vinyl going on a twill or something like that. I mean, you could even in theory do that. But the instructions we provide are designed to use on an embroidery machine. And we'll go through all those materials in just a couple minutes. So for now, I'm just showing you this page. You can, if you go to our website, we'll do this after as well. We've got patches right on the front. It's also right under the embroidery supplies. And here's where we sell all of our kits, materials. We've got another web demonstration, myself, with Michael, who basically, put this patch kit together many years ago. And we've got software and all that, along with written instructions of everything I'm going to say today. So when you're watching this today and you say, oh, what was the temperature that he put it under? Understand that the temperature is going to be right here in the written instructions right on the page. In addition to that, we've got kind of the original video that Michael shot some years ago, and then we've got an updated version with Michael with a little bit different color hair than he had in that first one, and the addition of me, Mark. We need to look at a couple different pieces of material right now and what everything is. So I'm going to lay out a few things, and we're going to go through them step by step. But the first thing are these two right here. Okay, and I've got actually more than a couple, as we can also see what I'm working with today. But on this side right here, what we're looking at is our patch twill material. Okay, this is the newer of the patch materials that we work with. Okay, I had a bunch of stuff in my way. And a Dell reminder to update this computer. Okay. All right, now I feel good. The video looks great to me. We're recording this, by the way, so if you're watching this in the future, I'm sorry you couldn't be here live, but I'm glad you're watching this in the future. And if you need to share this with somebody or rewatch it, it should be all set and good to go to watch either later this afternoon or by tomorrow. On this side right here, we've got our patch twill material. This is a thinner material. It has a lower sheen to it, so it's got a little bit of a sheen to it. It's very simple, right? It looks like a solid color. There's not a lot going on in it. When you look at it close, you see that the stitch pattern in there is very mild. It's designed to just be a colored background and not really provide any other depth to the patch, but just be the basis of the patch. And an embroider is great, nice and simple to do. It does have an adhesive material on the back, which is fantastic. So you actually don't even need to use any backing on this material. That's a nice thing about this material is it requires no backing. It already has the stability to do it, and the patches that we're doing today and other patches that I'll show you that we've done in the past, all of them, none of them have any backing on. Now, this second material that we're looking at here, which has a much higher sheen, you can especially see it in the light here. It's got a much greater sheen, and if we look at it up close, it has a pattern to it. You can see it almost looks like a fill stitch pattern, a type of fill stitch pattern that you would do in embroidery. This is our original patch material, and this is very popular because folks love the way it looks. When you put a patch on this, it like pops out a lot. The background changes with the light. So as you're looking at it in different lights, you can see this, this color goes, lighter to darker depending on the light. So as this patch moves with it, so does the look of this. I love the way that this looks. Now on this one, it does not have a stabilizer on the back of it normally. Okay, it's a very soft, light material. You can see there's no structure to it. So you need to stabilize this one. In order to stabilize it, we use what we call this heat spun material. It's a bit translucent. You can see my hand through it. It is a very, very thin spun glue, thinner than a sheet of paper, and it tears, apart very easily. It's a very thin, lightweight material. This is a heat applied glue. How does this work? I'll show you. I'll just do a piece of it so you can see. We're going to use heat to put it on, and we're going to use our heat press. So I'm just going to scoot it just a bit to the side so you can see well. Move my heat press out of the way. I'm going to use a piece of, this is silicone release paper. You can use a Teflon sheet. You can use a parchment style paper, any type of heat, anything that will not stick to the adhesive. Because remember, this is glue right now. That's glue. So the silicone paper works perfectly because the glue doesn't stick to it. All we need to do is adhere them together. We're melting the glue, and then then the glue will dry, and it's going to be stuck to the back of the material. It doesn't take long at all. It's very quick and fast and easy. Okay, so now you can almost not even see where it is. You can see the line right here. If you look at it in the light, You can see where it is. There's a little bit of the sheen there. This half is now stabilized. This is not. This is a whole sheet that's stabilized, a whole piece of it. And here's your difference right here. If I kind of, grab it Northeast pizza style, like this, you can see that it holds up by itself. It's nice and stable. The same thing with this material. It holds up by itself. It's nice and stable. This, where it doesn't have it, you get the flop. If I try to hold it like that, it flops over. It's not stable. So we need to stabilize this. You don't have to use other backings. You don't have to use a cutaway or a tearaway backing. You're going to essentially defeat the purpose of this whole patch process if you're trying to use an alternate material besides the heat spun. That's the name, heat spun. I'm going to say it a bunch of times, and I'm going to show you on the website so everyone knows what I'm talking about. So stick around to the end so I can show you where to find the heat spun. But this is very inexpensive, number one, right? So that's a win. You can get a very large roll of it for very inexpensive. That goes a long, long way. So use this right here, and you'll save yourself a ton of time. All you need is heat to apply it. Once you've done it, now you've got your heat spun on the back of your patch material. And here's a white version of it. You can see the lines of the texture of the material. So at this point in time, you either have your patch twill material or your what we call patch mat. That's the name for it, the patch mat. So you've got the patch mat or the patch twill, and now you just hoop it. How do you hoop it? A regular tubular style hoop. Doesn't need to be any particular shape. You can use a really large hoop. I'll show you a little sample of something that we've done in the past. So you can use a big hoop and you can embroider a ton of patches in here. This would be like a name tag run that we've done. You can also do a small hoop and just do a singular patch, just like this one. So this is a heavy stitch count, larger size patch, and this is something where I just took and I just hooped one right in the middle there. That's fine. It's always best to do as many as you can. Especially if you're doing more than one patch, do them all. Sew them out all together. It's less time hooping. It's faster for your embroidery machine, and you're going to waste the least amount of material. Hooping up one uses up, this much material, right? But two of these fit in that same spot, and I still only hooped it once. And the same thing, if I could have put 4 on here with a little bit of a bigger hoop and a little bigger material. So that's how that works. Okay, then there's one last piece of the puzzle in regards to materials, which is this right here, okay? This is our heat seal material. The heat seal material goes on the back of a patch. So you would take your patch, and we're actually going to do this in a minute here, but we take our patch, we're going to put our heat seal material on it, and then in the end, we will have a very stable. This is so here's our, this. When we look at this is still fairly unstable. Stable enough to embroider, but not enough to be a good solid patch. This is now stable. This is a tough patch. This means this is going to stand to the test of everything that you want to do for a patch. Now, I see someone's asked a question. Every once in a while, I'll stop. This is a pretty good pause point, because then we're going to move on to the heat seal and cutting out the patch next. So let's see and ask anything you want. As many questions, the more the merrier. Okay. Let's see. Someone's not getting sound. I assume other folks are getting sound, otherwise my messages would be blowing up. More than likely, obviously just check your speakers, check all that. That's just a typical thing. Some people can drop video or sound. If for any reason, make sure your computer is not muted. If not, you might not be able to hear me as I'm explaining this to you. Hopefully you get it though. Can this material be used for frayed patches? Absolutely. The process, and that's actually one thing I was going to talk about. The cutting process prevents the fraying. Okay, that's the point of the cutting process. If you do not want it, if you want it to be a frayed edge, there's essentially, and it's a good, you literally cut, So this material here is going to give you the least amount. You see, even just cutting it, there's a light fray to it, and you can actually fray it up further if you wanted to, with scissors, if you wanted, as much of a frayed look as possible. This is how the patch twill is going to fray. Okay, so it's a very light frayed edge. You can see it there, but it's very light. It's not much on the frayed. Okay, this is a simpler frayed look. This material, as you can see, has a heavy fray to it. So every time you cut this, now when you cut it with the heat seal, I'm going to show you two things here. Okay, here's where my heat seal is. Remember, I did half and half, and here's where it's not. So I'm going to cut this one as well. Okay, so here's what's happening. When we cut it with the heat seal, if we want to fray it, just the same as anything else. I mean, you just take a sharp edge and just fray it up. And this would be after I would cut it out. I'd cut it out with scissors, and then I would do a fray out. So you can see this. You can get a nice heavy fray on this, as much as you want. If you wanted to do even a further, you can do something like this, where you're cutting actually into it and fraying it. So you can get, this one will fray a lot more. You can actually even pull it out like that. So you get all levels of fray with this one, because the material comes apart very easily. This other side, which has no heat spun material at all, this stuff will fray massively. Too much, to the point where your embroidery eventually is going to get ruined. You have no stability in the back of this material. So unless, if you were going to physically heat apply it at the end, but you wanted to create it, then you can even have the area where you're going to sew specifically, have a little bit of stabilizer in it, and maybe even leave some of the edges unstabilized. Get creative. Let me check my question dialog box here for a moment. Is the stabilizer translucent when it's heat applied? Yeah, and actually take a look here. Here's the back. You can see where the stabilizer is and isn't. So here there's nothing, and here there is. So it's essentially invisible. It's just got a sheen to it, but you can't really see it. It's hard to tell when you're looking at it like this with nothing to compare to. You wouldn't know that it was on here. As soon as you feel it, you can see that it's been stabilized. So that's your heat spun material. And remember, it looks like this right here. Now, what we need to do next is we want to prepare, we'll do the names first, okay? We want to prepare these to be cut out with our knife. Okay. So we want to prepare these to be cut out with a knife. If I just cut them now, it's going to be harder to do, because these have been sewn. They're not as smooth and even as I'd like them to be, and as I move this material around, it's going to move a little bit too. So I want to stabilize it even further after I've sewn it out. And that's where I'm going to use this. This is our heat seal. That's what I was telling you about before. This is a much thicker material. As you can see, it's completely translucent as well, but it's much heavier than the heat spun. Ripping this by hand is not something you're going to do. So let's do this, just like we did the other material. Make a sandwich. This has a paper behind it that when it comes in a roll. You're going to get it just like this with the paper. These sides don't matter. It's a piece of glue, one way or another. One side's smoother, one side's textured. It's just how they make it. Neither has anything to do with which side is more adhesive. It is a full adhesive piece. This whole thing is glue. As soon as we get it hot, this whole thing liquefies. So we want to use this, and we just make essentially a sandwich. That's the easiest way to do it, because now you can carry it around. You don't have to work under your heat press, or if you have an iron, you can just put it right on top. The instructions and temperature and all that's right on the page, and we're going to go to that at the end. But essentially, 320, 20 seconds, I mean, that's your number. It's not so finicky, you know, in regard that I'm going to exact measure the time, and you'll see. It liquefies pretty quickly. Now, this is a thicker material, and it's going to get hot. So I would recommend not grabbing it right away. Just give it, you know, you can even do this, and that's enough time. Feel it with your hand to make sure. If it still feels really hot, don't try to remove it yet, because that's going to be liquid a little bit still, and you don't want it to get it stuck to your hands. So now we've got this very nicely stabilized material. It's also nice and smooth. You can see there's no more wrinkles in it anywhere. This is, we're basically on our way to a patch. Now you could cut it here if you wanted to fray edge it. You could do that as well and then fray your edges. And that'd be one way of doing it. If you want the clean edge look patch, which both are great, both are part of the patch making world, then this is how you're going to want to do that. So we've got our hot knife. Is it hot? I should test. It's hot. Okay. So we've got our hot knife. I also keep a paper towel, and you can see what I've done here. This is for wiping the hot knife as we're cutting the fabric. We're cauterizing and melting this material as we're going around it, and it can build up on the hot knife. If too much builds up, then you're going to transfer a little bit of that melted material on the nice clean edge of your patch, and then you've got a sloppy edge. The point of using this is to have a nice, neat edge. We don't want a frayed and sloppy edge. So let's just do it real quick. It's very easy. You've got, this is just a tip on this. It's just a regular hot knife with a tip. It's nothing particularly too fancy. Make sure the tip is on nice and tight. Okay. It's very hot. And all we're going to do is cut around, and when we get to a certain point, we're just going to give it a quick wipe like that, and that's it. As simple as it sounds and looks, really. It's not hard to do. It's not long either. I'm going to go slow on this first one, the second one, because I'll talk about it, and then the second one I'll just kind of go through and do it. And take out your stopwatch, and if you want to figure out on your time how long it might take you to do, say, 20 of these, you know, how long would it take me to cut them? So I'm just going to go around just like this. And I probably could have gone longer. I didn't wipe up very much, but I wanted to start off with about 1.5 inches or so. Depending on the colors I'm using, you know, I want to gauge, you know, how dirty is this going to be. When you do blue, you know, blue's got a lot of dye in it, and as soon as I wipe that, there's a ton of blue. I'm using white here, so it's not really going to get the knife as dirty, so I can probably go a little bit longer. And the method that we recommend, and what I'm doing is I'm kind of trying to go at this angle to get almost like, if you imagine like I'm trying to get underneath the edge of the patch. I'm not trying to go straight up and down like this and cut the patch, because now my hot knife is going to melt the edge of my patch a little bit too much. I'm trying to go underneath it just a little bit. And then now this patch is cut out. And it's going to be stuck a little bit to this paper. You know, that's where you'll feel it. Or if you didn't push really hard, like that last little bit, add a tiny bit of the heat seal glue. And just pull it off. So now we've got a pretty clean cut, nice patch. If you notice really close, okay, towards the top there, there's a little bit of that hanging heat seal glue from when it got stuck. You can kind of see it, right? You can actually see a little bit of an edge there. So when you've got that little bit of the edge, it's an easy fix. You are literally just clean up the edge of your patch like that. The heat here is enough to melt that away. And that's it. And if you see any further spots you don't like, you just go ahead and go around till you're good. And that's all you have to do. There's Janice. Let's do Merlin. That's the other one we've got here. And I'll just do this one particularly quick. I won't talk a lot during it. That's it. I couldn't time myself, but that was pretty fast. And I feel good there. There's only one edge I'm not really too happy with, right here if you can see it. And you can go right back it down on your glass and just catch that edge like this, or you can do it on the side, you know, as well. I like it personally. I like it on all the patches to kind of just go really quick around them. On all of them, I think it just makes the edge really smooth and it gives like this perfect uniformity. You know, so this is a small. You know, this is a small patch. You can see, you know, based on the size of my hand, it's a 2 1/4 inch, I believe. So we're gonna do this on part of the hat as well. But you can see, you know, a little piece of material like this, a small amount of stitches, both of these two together were, I think, 4,000 stitches or less. So you can see how, you know, something like this sells for a few dollars for only a, you know, on the low end, on the low price end. You know, on the higher price end, it's higher. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry Anita's not able to reach it. Hopefully she can watch your recording later, as I mentioned. All right, how durable is the heat material? How likely is it to come off? Okay, the heat material is some killer stuff. If you get it onto a patch, onto a hat, okay, if you get it onto almost anything, it's never coming off. You've made it part of that garment forever. There are some materials that are not going to be as friendly with it. Okay, there are treated materials out there. You might have a hat, a winter cap made out of an acrylic that's treated to resist freezing. You know, I don't know. There might be some materials out there. A very few times have I heard. Most recently, somebody had a beanie cap that was made out of an acrylic. It said it was 100% acrylic, and they said that nothing would stick to it, but literally nothing would stick to it. You know, it's like the problem of trying to get Teflon stuck to a pan. You know, nothing's supposed to stick to it. So they ended up having to sew them on that particular cap. But they had said they'd done tons of other caps and T-shirts and sweaters and all these things, jackets, and never run into an issue. First time they ran into it. All right, how safe will it be to press a hat a customer would like to be sewn? Will that be necessary? Okay, so from what it sounds like, how safe is it to press it onto a hat versus sewing it? I think that's what you mean by that question. So, pressing a hat does have risks involved, just as sewing would, right? You have to get this hat or any hat through some sort of other machine. Okay, so you either have to run it through a sewing machine or through an embroidery machine or through a heat press. So there's going to be some risks involved in that. For one, if you're putting heat on anything, it could affect the color of it, right? But if you do t-shirts, you know this, right? You could put a red shirt on a heat press and this red shirt looks perfectly fine. You buy another name brand of a different red shirt and wherever you pressed it, it looks stained, you know, or it's scorched. So you run that risk on a hat as well. Is it a really thick foam hat in bright red? You know, will that stain? I don't know. Will it not? You know, for the most part, no. You know, for the most part, it's going to look good and you're not going to have issues. But as with any apparel decorating period, just like all your products that you buy that for washing clothes and dyeing clothes, say, you know, test for color fastness, you know, test everything. Take a blank cap. What did I do before this webinar? I took this cap, and it's just a habit I built. I took the cap, I put it on here. I'm just going to come around, and this is an important thing for you to do. Take the cap that you purchased. Don't do anything yet. Don't even start the job. Get the cap out of the box, put it on here, click it shut. We'll go into the details of what I'm doing here, but I'm just talking for the moment. Press it down. I'm going to give it the 10 seconds that it needed. Take it off. And then I'm just going to inspect my hat, you know. Did it leave any weird marks? Did it scorch anywhere? You know, does it appear to be damaged at all? You know, no. The cap made it safely. So I know that this cap is perfectly fine for heating and using it in the application that I'm going to do. And do that with everything, honestly. This is beyond a cap lesson. This is just any apparel decorating. If you get a new t-shirt you haven't used before, put it on your heat press. Just see what it does. Okay, so when a client brings a patch to you, they would like for you to sew them on with a sewing machine as well. I would tell them, I mean, if they want you to do it and they're willing to pay for it, then and you're willing to do the work, then do it. But no, you know, I don't see why they would come off. Not on anything that I've experienced. This is what you can do. I mean, take a patch, right? If you want to prove it to the customer because you don't want to do the work, buy a hat, put a patch on it, heat apply it, give it to them and ask them to take it off. Try to get them to rip it off. They're not going to be able to do it, and they're going to be sold. And if they can take it off, maybe it is a weird material, like I talked about before. Maybe it's got some sort of a coating on it to resist staining. Maybe, you know, if you do feel that, like, oh, I feel like I'll eventually peel this off, you know, or then at that point in time, you might want to evaluate, okay, well, maybe I should put a running stitch around it. It's one of those things, you know, it's that you can't predict apparel all the way. If you're in the industry and you've done enough t-shirts and caps, you know that you are going to run into weird things more often than you'd prefer. But for the most part, they stick. So we did this one. Let's move on to these two right here. I've got Citrus Park Mall Security and Volunteer Fire Rescue. I just did two kind of simple basic patches. This is something that you might really do on a cap. You know, that is a real world stuff. So let's repeat the whole process again. Heat seal, right? We'll do it quick. Make a sandwich. Remember, this has adhesive on it too, and so does this, right? So you want to cover the entire thing. If I were to just do it like this, there's still adhesive here that's going to get on your heat press. It's going to make a mess, and you're going to spend, 20 minutes cleaning up your heat press rather than making patches. About 10 seconds or not even, is enough. How do you know if you've done it long enough? You don't see a lot of air bubbles and such in there, okay? How do you know if you've done it too much, right? That's another question. If you've done it too much, the actual heat seal material will start to come through your patch. So it will liquefy and it will soak in, and then you're going to see all these splotchy marks of heat seal that's soaked through. That's how you know if you did it too much. So you don't need a lot of pressure. You want enough so you don't get kind of air bubbles and empty pockets back here. You want it to be just completely through. Also, you don't want it too much that it's going to seep through. So just find that, a medium pressure. That's it. Okay, yes. Diana, good. If you want a frayed patch, then yes, this is the heat seal really stabilizes that edge. Now, could you fray the edge? I haven't messed with it too much, but let's just do it real fast. Let's pretend like we cut that out, right? So here I've got heat seal on the edge of this material. What if I try to fray this? What's it going to do for me? All right, I get a little bit of a fray. If I actually cut the edge, can I get different? Maybe. Let's do this together. I build in extra time so everyone can learn from each other's questions. So I cut it a little bit. Let's see what happens if I fray on this even further. It doesn't fray nearly as much. You can get a little bit. So I would say I would get creative with the placement of my heat seal. I still would want to have it. You can go without it. Honestly, you can go without it. You can do this whole process without it. It will still happen. You will still cut it. If you want that have to more of a beat up look, then you can skip the heat seal. Experiment with it. And can you press the patch on with a flat press? Yes, actually, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about a concept of how I would do that. Okay? Yeah, no problem at all. I appreciate you guys coming in and asking questions. So let's do this real quick. No, this is going to be blue. Watch here. Let me get to a clean piece because I want you to pay attention to this. This one is more important. Why? I've got a red line, right, with blue. If I leave that hot knife on for a long time, I'm going to get blue and this red are going to melt together, and I'm going to end up with a purple border. Right? Is that right? I don't know. I need a third grader here to tell me if that's what color I would get. All right, let's do it real quick. Okay. So you can see the kind of the blue ended up on the paper towel here. Not too much, but enough that I wouldn't want to get it onto my threads. There we go. Let's just do this other one too while we're here. Actually, we'll move on. I'm going to save this just in case I get a question where I wish I would have had an uncut patch. All right. Let's see here. Okay, Pat, good question. Do I do it? Do you do it similar to an applique? Yes, yes and no. This is how. So these are my patch borders right here. Okay, these are our patch borders. That's what this is. That's what this is. Every patch that you've seen us working with here is from our patch borders designs. All right, so these are all digitized specifically for patches. What's the difference? Okay, we do a running stitch around, and we do a running stitch back, and then I do a zigzag underlay. Okay, then I do a zigzag underlay again. Then I do a nice dense satin all the way around, and then I come back again and I do an additional satin that you can't see, and it's going to be way too small for the camera. But I do an additional satin just on the edge, on the very, very edge. And that's so many stitches that as I'm cutting this, they're not popping up. If you just do a single underlay and a regular satin stitch and you start to cut it, you're going to get stitches that just poke up like that. You know, they're going to be down and flat, and you're going to cut them and they're going to pop up, and that's not going to look right. So that's the purpose of this. For our patch border CD, I just say it's worth the money if you're going to be doing shapes like this to have. We tested a lot of different ones. For the money, you are going to have to do all that testing yourself and realize which ones cut out perfect. We've already done all that for you, so if you buy the CDs, then it's already done for you. If not, just make it really dense, or if you have to do custom shapes, just make it as dense as you possibly can and add more layers of underlayment and just, you know, go full out with it. It adds stitches to the design, but it makes it more stable and look better. What temp on the heat press? No problem. It'll be on the page, the website, on our patch page. I'll show you at the end. But 320, 10 seconds or so. is good enough. Exactly, Tina. That's what I said. If you need a custom shape, just like as I said, kind of follow the instructions I mentioned. Just make it as dense as you can with lots of underlayment. The Stitch Era software is not pre-programmed to do patch borders, if that makes sense. You can't just pick patch and it makes a patch border. You need to know the digitizing yourself, but you could do it in Stitch Era. I actually everything you ever see me saw ever in any of my videos I do in Stitch Era. So, okay, Tina, thanks for the good questions. I like them. So now we're going to put it on a cap. So that's what Peter just asked. That's what we're doing next. That's exactly where we're going. We're going to apply this and this to the cap. So Merlin is our mole security officer, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it in 2 different spots. So let's do it. So we're going to go to our cap press. This is going to be as simple as it looks. There's not much to it. So this is a Hotronix cap press, okay? The big thing is this adjustment right here. You want to make sure that it's not too tight, okay? If it puts too much pressure, what's going to happen with the heat seal glue, right? It's going to melt through and it's going to discolor my patch. Too much pressure is going to be bad. Not enough pressure is just not going to make it stick to the cap. So we just got to find that happy medium. So we put this on. The way that this one works is you put the cap on just like you would put it on a head. Underneath it, under here, you can see this spring. And you push that. That locks it in place. Just make sure it's centered. And you can center it up. This is a center, and this is a center, and this dot's a center. So you can kind of get a really good, solid visual center line right there. If your cap has an actual center, like this design has a center, then it's particularly easy because you can just line it up on that line. Let's see. Give you a different angle of what I'm doing here. So that's all I've done. I've just put it on top there and let it sit. Now, if you want to follow the rules of always using paper on your heat press and such like that, you can do that with a little cut piece. And you can put that on there like that. So you would line this up, find right where you want it to be. Right there would be good. And then if you want to put your paper on it or not, I'm not going to be concerned about it now because I already know I've already cut the edges of that out all perfect. So I'm not concerned with anything really leaking out past it. And also I've already tested my pressure. So I'm going to do it for 10 seconds. And I'm just going to do a last visual since I'm talking to you guys. I like to be sure I'm paying attention very well. I'm going to pre-press first. I recommend a pre-press for almost everything. It's going to give you that nice smooth surface. Line it up. And then press it down. My rule of thumb is as little pressure as is necessary. So anytime you can put less pressure, use less pressure. It's going to be better for the cap. If you squeeze caps too much, you're going to end up with lines, on where you pressed it, and it'll come out. I mean, it's not something that you can't, brush out or whatever it might be, but it's just not going to look as nice and neat right off of your. Oh, here, let me get a better angle for you. There we go. So here we are, and this is the test right here. Is it going to come up a little bit? All right, it came up a little bit on the edge right there. There's my test. So I did not have enough pressure. This is how you should be doing it, like I'm doing it right now. I let it cool a little bit so I could touch it, and then I lift the edge, and I say, okay, I need to dial up my pressure. So I'm going to go over to my press, and this is just exactly how you do it. And you dial it up. And this one, you put it up. The higher up it goes, the more pressure you got. Now it's already centered, so I don't have to worry about any of that. It doesn't really matter where I'm putting it now. I just need to make sure that I get it on the press again. And then I'll just give it to 10 more seconds again. Okay, so I'm going to let that cool. While I'm letting it cool, let's put his name on the side. Let's do Janice. So we'll do the name on the side here. Now remember, you could have done, you could do it on the back, you know, as well. You know, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to do it on the side. Now, how do I make sure everything is okay for the side of my cap? Test, right? Am I going to damage the bill, you know? All right, that's a little bit too close to the bill. I don't feel comfortable with that. So I'm going to move it over just a bit. Now I feel comfortable. It's not going to, I don't feel any reason why it's going to damage the bill when I do this. Put it in place. And then 10 seconds. And again, you know, this is my first one. I'm going to take a look at that bill. Just pay attention, right? You know, don't assume everything's going to be great. Do 100 caps and then you mess up. And here we go. Oh, there we go. There's our side. There's our front. So here we go. A patch on the cap. That's it. It's the same as if I were to put it onto a t-shirt. Same as if I were to put it onto anything at all. You know, the next thing I wish I would have with me is a lint brush. When you're working with patch material, it's a linty material. You know, it's just the way the material is. So when you work with it, have your lint brush. This way you can brush any little lints, especially the patch mat. You can see the yellows kind of come there. But otherwise, this now is on. And I can even go there, you know. No lift at all. And you know, you can look at the back, it's not melted through. That's nice. You look at the front, it's not discolored at all anywhere. It's nice and clean. And the same thing with this side. So here we go. I'm ready to, I can go to the mall right now and probably run security. Nobody would even realize what I'm doing. All right. Thanks for watching this portion. Let's switch back to the screen. Let me just show you here the different materials, where to get them, okay? So here is embroidery supplies, and you can go to patch kits. It's also this this delivery driver in the front here, start making patches. Okay, so here's where you can watch another video. This is probably another hour. Okay, the steps for doing the outer edge. Yeah, I'll tell you again, Lori. So I won't delete your question until I do that. Okay, so let's do that. Lori asks, can you give the steps mentioned for the design of the outer edge? So what we do essentially, all right, and it's going to depend on the size of and everything and all the exact things, but I'll give you the basics. And if you can digitize, do this. If you can't, you know, ask a digitizer to do it for you. But we're doing like 2 layers of a regular running stitch underlay type of thing, just a running stitch around and back. Then we do a zigzag type of underlay, and we do 2 layers of that. Sometimes 1 is enough where it's like a particularly big patch, but 2 layers of that, and then we'll do a nice dense satin all the way around, and then we will do 1 more kind of a really wide open, not as dense satin on the very edge, like a zigzag on the edge on top, just to bite that edge down further. The main reason for that is when you're cutting them out, you don't want those stitches to pop up. That extra zigzag on the edge on top of your satin will basically tack down the edges of the satin stitch. So as you're cutting, you've got more than one piece of thread holding every other thread down, if that makes sense. Yeah, we did. Oh, hey, Barbara, you missed it. Yes, we did do it on there. If you stick around till the very, very end, I'll turn the camera back on and I'll show you what we did. But I did record this as well. I'm recording it as we speak, so you can watch it again in the future too. Lori, you're welcome. Thank you for asking a question. So let's look at everything. All right, the way that this is structured here on our patch page is we've got our heat seal backings, our hot knife, our kits, our patch material, our patch twill material, and our patch borders. So let's start with the heat seal backing. We've got two types. We've got the seal, and you see it in caps, seal, and then we've got the spun, okay? And again, there's even a note here. Don't use heat spun unless you read what it's used for, okay? So heat spun is for the patch material, the regular patch material. It's the stabilizer. The patch twill already has a heat application on the back of it, so you're not adding it. And that has to do with just the way the materials are manufactured. So those are your two materials. As you can see, that heat spun, it's cheaper than backing, so definitely don't use backing if you can use this, right? So we've got that. Then we've got our hot knife. Here's where you can a la carte, you can buy the knife and the tip. The universal tip's what I use. Then there's the mini tip, it's just smaller. If you're doing a lot of detailed round patches, square patches, no big deal. If you're doing a lot of intricate stuff, crosses and things where you've got lots of corners and turns and such, then go ahead and get the mini tip. And then the holder that I was using here as well. Then we've got our patch kits. All right, our patch kits run from $50 up to our Pro, which is $1,000, basically $9.99, and it's all just what comes with it. All of them are ready to make patches out of the box. So if you get one of these, you're ready to make patches. The difference is what comes with it and how much of it comes with it. So our two most popular, the Patch Kit Duo is our most popular kit. That's the thing that moves the most. The Patch Trio is second, right on there. That's got the twill material. This has got the patch mat. Whatever material you prefer, that's what you get. Equivalent value of each though. It's the same value. Then you've got our regular patch kit in white and black. This is our economy starter for the folks who are literally only want to test it. They don't think they really want to get into it yet, or don't really want to invest the money yet. So we have a starter kit. It's very, very basic. Then we've got our patch kit with a 12-inch heat press. This is great for the little mini starter business of this. If you want to get into patches and you want to do it right, then this is the budget-friendly version of that. $400, 12-inch small compact press, a little smaller than we're using here. Ideal for patches because generally you're not doing a patch bigger than 12 inches, right? The Patch Kit Pro includes the heat press that I saw. It's a little bigger, a little more robust of a heat press. It's got a better handle on it, so it's a bigger area, so that's nicer. That's why we included that one, and it comes with a whole bunch more materials. So this thing is loaded up. The Patch Kit Pro is that is the kit if you really, really want to get into patches and you want to do it right and you want to do it good and you want to be set up out of the box. This is the way to go. You save a ton of money doing it this way. I think you save over $200 between materials and everything. It's our best kit. It's our best value kit, and it comes with that heat press, and I use this heat press all the time for all types of demos. Then the last is our patch borders. So these are shapes, fire, EMT, the states, name tags. We used the fire EMT and name tags were the two types that we used today. The names were literally name tag ones, and that badge was kind of like a policeman's badge. And then here's our regular patch material and the colors it comes in. Okay, here's the note where we note the heat spun glue right here. Here's the patch twill and the colors this comes in. We got some new colors that we need pictures for. And then just the border CDs by himself, including the kit for $300, where it's basically you buy 3 and you get 1 for free. So that's all the patch stuff that we have to offer to get you started into the patch business. And I think there's even here's a video where we show how we use the patch border CDs. So where we created this one patch right here. So thank you for watching. And let me see if there's any other questions right now. Okay, we finished up with the questions. I'm going to turn the camera on. I remember one of you asked to see the patch again, so I'm going to turn the camera back on. But otherwise, we're ending the webinar right now. It was great to have all you guys here. Awesome questions, good questions. That's really exciting when people ask, good, attentive questions. So those are all important things to consider. And definitely poke around the Colman and Company site if you haven't already. Browse our store. Browse our store just like you would anywhere else. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Just to tell you a few things to consider, if you are not in the cutter market yet, if you don't have a cutting plotter yet, I'm going to highly recommend the GraphTech that we sell. And that comes in our business starter kits for the brush and bake and cut and press, which I'll mention, but also just right under here under heat press supplies. These cutters are awesome, and we've got tons of videos on how to use the software and how to use the cutters, and lots of information. We've also got our starter kits for the cut and press is making t-shirts, and the brush and bake is making rhinestone templates for t-shirts. So you can check these out. We've got videos and webinars on these as well. We've got a bunch of videos. I'm adding videos to the website all the time, including this video will go up. So the goal is just have tons of videos for you guys to watch and learn. Okay. All right, awesome. So thank you everybody for coming by.